This turned out pretty damn cool. It's ready for my electric parts. Well, I've got the motor on it. That's the 12,000 watt QS 17-inch by 6-inch motor. High performance brakes, high performance shock. Pretty cheap to make high performance stuff. You just gotta have yellow spray paint and red spray paint. Going to be cool. 170 fatback tire. It's as big as I can put in there. That is close. Got the performance back brake because it's red. Clip-on handlebars, GPS speedo, and a voltmeter. That's it. No display, no goofy shit. I'm gonna turn the bike on, give it throttle, and go. If you wanna go faster, gonna have a boost switch. That's all you get. This is why I do these videos. This bike I got on Marketplace, the guy thought it just needed a little bit of work, because he doesn't know. He had a mechanic work on it, screwed it up. He can't tell enough to prove it. Most people can't. If you're taking your bike to a mechanic, you probably don't know how to open it up and tell the mechanic he screwed up. And I love doing that. So the first thing you notice on this bike, there's witness marks right there. That's where the cam chain came off. The block wasn't in that goes between here. There's actually a Suzuki part that goes in there that is not there. That's required to compress between that black phenolic runner and its opposite right here. So that was left out. Then these bolts came loose. One of them went down in the engine. The cam bolt retainer was all wadded up inside the chain. Then the chain broke and got wrapped around the crankshaft. That's when the cam stopped moving and the pistons hit the valves. And then I don't know what damage is inside those pistons. I don't know if it bent the crank. There's a lot of unknowns still. And that's okay. That's why I got this thing for such a good deal. Making a budget e-bike, gotta get good deals. So don't take your bike to a mechanic. Watch some YouTube videos and fix it yourself. That's the whole point of the videos. You'll do a much better job, you'll be satisfied, it'll be cheaper. See how the steel frame goes all the way around? A lot of these bike engines in the 80s and early 90s use the engine case as part of the frame, and the frame only comes to here and bolts to the engine. You have to make a lot of stuff to fit your battery in there now. With these old school frames that come all the way around the bottom, you can just drop your battery right in there. Battery will slide in here. This little plate that came with it to hold the engine mount, I put pieces of rubber on both sides. That'll compress it and hold it from sliding back and forth. It'll be held this way here and then up here from going forward. The other thing I like is a steel frame, so I can grind it, cut it, weld to it. It's very easy to work with steel. If I want to do a hub drive, I got to look at swing arm width. Most of these hub motors, these large hub motors, are 8.5 to about 9.5 inches wide between it. Then the axles stick out about 2 inches on each side, so they could be anywhere from 10.5 to, let's say, 13 inches wide. So you want a swing arm that you can fit one of these motors in. Look for a bike that has a swing arm the width you're looking for. Most 70s bikes don't. This is an 82. When you set out to make your cafe racer, the idea is less is more. Anything that's not completely required, we're getting rid of. But a lot of cafe racers don't really look the part. Even though they strip them down and get rid of the fenders, of all the bling. The big things that make these not look good as cafe racers is people don't level the tank and they don't get a smaller front wheel. And this is a sport model. If you want to recreate the 60s look with a cafe racer, spoke wheels are the way to go. Sometimes it's not feasible. But one thing that needs to happen is this front wheel needs to go. That makes this thing look like a chopper. The second thing is, this gas tank slopes down like that. The back of the gas tank has to come up and or the front has to go down. And usually you have room in here to bring the front down, quite a bit of room. And you have some room to bring the back up, which will also raise the seat. And that'll give it a better cafe racer look. You want the front of the bike to be a little bit lower. When we put that smaller wheel up front, we're gonna bring the front end down. We'll get a spoked wheel up front that's 17 inches. We'll get a 17-inch wheel in back. So the seat and the fender gotta go. If you wanna know what I'm doing here, watch my front wheel video for a cafe racer. Got this stripped down to nothing. I'm thinking about putting a battery in it, that big right there. Of course, a lot wider. Looks like it'll fit good. Put the same battery in it this one has. And the reason why is because I made this battery quick change. I want to be able to have 2 batteries, so I could have the battery in here. Then either battery works on either bike. Always have one charging, one to ride. And that headlight, it's all kind of old school. Everything's homemade. You couldn't just come back from World War II and go online in the 1950s and early 60s and buy parts from AliExpress. You had to make this shit yourself. So that's what we're doing here. We're making our own stuff. Everything. We're gonna reuse what we can. All this old school stuff. It's gonna be cool. Gotta keep the theme alive. So the fender's not only too tall now, because the wheel's smaller, so it's got to come down, but it goes too far forward. But I like to keep this bead on here, so I'm going to move this fender back to where I want it and then cut the back off. So I ground out the rivets. Now with this bracket lined up with the rear holes and the front holes, I think that will be perfect. And then I'll drill more holes here to mount this the rest of the way, cut the back off. Just an eyeball thing now. I'd say about right here where that dent is. Pretty good cafe racer fender. Probably could have left the back longer. So I'm gonna go to the scrap pile here, and I found this. Use this rubber right here and make a mud flap. Much better. Ghetto done right. Starting to look more and more like a cafe racer. Clip-on handlebars. I don't really want the feel like on that fake Ducati where they're way down here and you're leaned over. I kind of want a more cruiser feel, but I want the look cafe racer and the clip-ons. So I raise the forks and just put them on top, and that gives it a comfortable feel. Has the same look, but it's more of a cruiser type body position. And I've got the room to raise these because I went down so low on the wheel and I lowered the fender. So I should have the clearance in there, but I probably will pull these fork springs out and clearance this thing and make sure I don't hit anything. Dolly Parton is famous for a saying that it costs a lot of money to look this cheap. The goal is to keep this thing on a budget, not spend a bunch of money trying to make the bike look grungy, because then it won't look very grungy. I'll have a bunch of new parts on it. Wanting to recreate the era when people did stuff themselves. They didn't have a lot of money. They were just trying to scrap it all together. So use as much scrap as you can, but some stuff is just so cheap, like this seat loop or a seat hoop with an H. On the cafe racer, all this stuff in the back has to come off right about here. Can't have anything sticking out that far. So I'll cut this off and I'll weld in this seat hoop. They make these with brake lights in them also, but this was only $13. Either AliExpress or eBay, so they're cheap. It's a cafe racer video, so it's obligated to have this scene. Save that, use it for something else. It's like AliExpress knew the motorcycle I had. Starting to make sense now. I have orthopedic injuries in both knees and ankles. One leg I can't get past 90. So this is too short for me. So mine's gonna be a little more modified than you would typically do. But I'm gonna raise that seat and that tank up just for my long legs. Looks cool. You can see I added a second seat hoop on here. The bike was just too low for me. I've got a second seat hoop going that's tied into this one. I thought it looked all right. It looked better without it, but I wanted to get the bike higher, so you want to avoid this modern look of these cool switches that you're not really on a MotoGP bike. Try to find old switches if you can. I mean, look at this old classic switch. That thing's got to be from the 1960s. I'm going to use that for a push button for probably boost. Tire and wheel off eBay. Got it for about half the price of a new one, I think. I'm hoping this is what the Chinese used when they designed these hub motors. I think that swing arm might have been made for this hub. So even though this axle can't turn inside this, I needed something to control the back and forth movement. So this bracket here controls it from going back, but I had to weld something to keep it from sliding forward. So I figured why not make another axle plate. So I'm triple thick on the axle plates, which is cool, and that can't slide forward and aft. This holds it in place. That should be a good mount. Bummer. That's the exact tire I was going to buy, a 190, something nice and fat in the back. But it doesn't fit between there. I just can't measure everything. So I need a narrower tire on here. I think the wheel will fit. That's the 170. Still looks pretty cool in the back. Nice and wide. And man, that thing is close, but it's going to fit good. Got clearance on both sides. Yeah, so don't make the mistake I did. Don't forget to measure. You figure it's a 17-inch wheel, so about 1.5 inches or 2 inches further up into it is where the crease of that tire sits. So measure that too. About 19 inches from the axle. Make sure the tire you want is going to fit in that swing arm on your donor bike. This is a Continental 170. Man, that baby's spot on. 170. That's akin to 180. 174. Not bad. So just to be safe, I would figure the tires were the size they advertised. That way when you do your measuring, you know it won't be bigger than that and it'll fit. And obviously I can't go spoke wheels in the back, but I think those look really good together. Yeah, the goal is to keep this thing, turn the key on, go riding. GPS speedometer. No display, no anything. It was pointed out to me I'll have to have a voltmeter though. Got to know when the battery's about to die. This will be the boost switch. But yeah, I want the old school look with modern internals. I've got to get a larger rotor. I can't get this in close enough. I need to weld a bracket, get a larger rotor, move it out here. It's original back brake. I'm going to get a master cylinder, probably mount up here, run a hose to this, and have a hydraulic rear brake. Got a bunch of brake parts out of the parts bin. Looks like that green one's gonna fit. This thing here looks cool, but it's almost too modern for this look. It's almost like this was the only bike China had when they made all their parts. Not quite a factory fit, close enough to make it work. Uh-huh. And another homemade bracket. Keep this tab for the brake light. Yeah, brake line's got a hole in it. Must be AliExpress, brand new. All right, back brakes. Ended up putting the controller right here. I couldn't find another place for it that it would fit. It's gonna sit right there. Under this tank will mostly be wiring. There's the DC converter. You can see the tank is completely hollow. It's just a cover now. The wiring's buried under here. Did a whole video on Japanese bike wiring, how the Japanese do it on their motorcycles. Worth watching, even if you're not building an e-bike. A light bulb will come on, I guarantee it. Make you understand your wiring harness better. If you're converting a Japanese bike into a e-bike, 100% watch that video, because you can use the entire wiring harness. Don't buy anything, make it work. Well, you got to buy a converter, but I do have to make a couple of small changes. I wanted to keep the old school blinkers. They use one positive wire coming out of the center of the blinker. You see it right here. They use the body as a ground. That can't happen. If you hook this wire to ground on an old bike, you're going to ground your entire chassis. And if you're running 72 volts and you touch it, it won't be too bad. But if you're running 108 volts and you touch it, you're going to know it. So that's why I don't have back blinkers on. I'm still modifying them. Modify them internally, put LED lights in there, run 2 wires out. So it's time to pull this thing apart, weld all the welds, cut all the stuff off I'm not going to use, get the frame ready, and I can reassemble it. Always wanted a cafe racer. Now I'm going to have an electric one. Going for that grungy look. Have to get me a Nirvana t-shirt to wear when I ride it. It turned out pretty good.